Welcome to episode 102 of the Scarlet Faithful podcast. I'm Aaron Breitman, coming to you a lot later on Wednesday, June 28th. Had a really busy work day and was covering a few other things. So, wanted to get this episode out. It's a daily podcast. We made it recording this into the evening, but wanted to focus on this episode on Rutgers baseball. Very busy off season. The last month, a lot of players leaving, a lot of players transferring in. Still more work to be done. The freshman class is yet to be, our incoming freshman class. There's been some kind of announcements here and there on social media. I really do like what Rutgers baseball is doing this offseason and how they're announcing players coming in through the transfer portal. It's basically a tweet so far, and it's kind of getting streamed in intermittently. So it's kind of a cool way to kind of stay on top of mind. But wanted to kind of put it all together in terms of where we're at with Rutgers baseball. Obviously, a lot of interest the last couple of years under Steve Owens. Last 2 years ago, 2022, obviously the breakthrough campaign, most wins in program history. The big snub, not making the NCAA tournament, losing it in the Big Ten championship game, really generated a lot of interest. She had some career guys, Ryan Lasco, Chris Brito. Uh, it's really a transition period now after this past season. Went 33-23, a little bit of a disappointment in terms of, losing both Big Ten tournament games, not making a serious run. They were in contention a little bit for the NCAA tournament. At one point, they were projected in rather late, but didn't work out. Ultimately, I think inconsistency at the plate and some struggles in the bullpen really kind of felled this team. But a lot of positives too. Some younger players that were contributors, but wanted to just kind of jump in. So, in terms of what's been lost, there's been a reported 11 players in the transfer portal so far. The biggest name by far is Evan Slight, who has been a great player for Rutgers the last 3 years. 301 career average, batted cleanup, left fielder. There was some thought that he would. Well, I still think he can get drafted, and I think there was some thought that he was going to leave and prepare for that. And I think he's going to be a top 10 round pick. But ultimately, he transferred to Alabama, which is a big time move into the SEC with baseball. That was announced over the weekend. So that's certainly a big loss. He followed the new Maryland coach who got the head coaching job there at Alabama. And Slight is now a Roll Tide, Crimson Tide. So definitely the biggest loss to the transfer portal by far. There were some other positional players, three others. Probably the most notable, Maximus Martin, was a freshman last season. A lot of hype coming in. He was drafted last year. He played somewhat. He had a few big home runs. Really liked him, but ultimately, he decided to leave. Not sure where he's going to end up, but he does have a bright future. So wish him well. Danny Melnick, who's caught some, was kind of the backup catcher, and also outfield, played some. He's leaving, and then catcher Jason Shockley didn't make a huge impact. So that's the positional players that are leaving. And then in terms of pitching, 7 pitchers are in the transfer portal. Uh, Kind of three significant or relievers in terms of Sam Bello, Garrett French, freshman Grant Besser pitched a lot. Also John Madungo. Um, those are guys that kind of split time in those two starters and bullpen. So those 4 all made contributions, pitched a decent amount, but are now leaving. And then you had some seldomly used guys, Jason Hoops, sophomore Matt Rowe, and then freshman J2 Kroner. Overall, in terms of the 11 players that are leaving through the portal, not huge contributors as a group. A couple there, obviously Slight, as I mentioned. Bello pitched a lot the last 2 years. But this is people have been asking me, is something wrong? Should we be worried? Absolutely not. I think it's just the reality of college sports these days. And I think with baseball, we're still very early in the off season. I think Steve Owens recognized that, this team kind of they didn't make progress this year, right? They didn't have a bad year. I mean, 10 games over 500, top half of the Big 10, played in the Big 10 tournament. It's overall it's a fine year. It's a good year. But at the same time, you have a lot of change happening. You have guys leaving that weren't used very much. You also have, like I said, Lasco and Brito are two program staples that are, have now graduated and they're gone. So it's an off season of change, and I think he has embraced the transfer portal since he's been at Rutgers. He's done a really good job in terms of adding. If you remember Nick Samillo, the catcher from Manhattan 2 years ago, just I mean dominated the Big Ten. Was a tremendous addition, and I'm talking 2022 was a big reason for that team's success. So. He's dipping into the transfer portal again, and so far, 8 players from the transfer portal have announced commitments to Rutgers. So, in terms of, let's start with pitching. So far, it's been 3. The first one was Jack Eschliman from Division III Hamilton College. Has really good statistics. His ERA was in the ones. High strikeout rate, 51 strikeouts over 31 innings, I believe, and had some limited, starts over his career. He didn't make a ton of starts last year, only threw 51 innings, but was dominant. So, really encouraged by him. See what he can do. Not sure again where these guys are going to land, whether they're going to be relievers, starters. I have Steve Owens on the podcast every year before the season starts, so we'll surely do that again. But I think once the program puts out a formal release on all the newcomers coming in, we'll maybe have some clarity there, and I'll try to dig around as well. And then they've added St. John's transfer Sonny Fauci and also Old Dominion reliever Joey DiCiaro. So DiCiaro. I think I'm saying that right. Apologize if not. He's from New Jersey, coming back. He's a grad transfer. Fauci from St. John's has started as well. He's coming up. He's been injured throughout his career, but healthy now. So three arms in the Rutgers pitching staff now, all different levels of experience, but I'm sure they're going to add more through the portal as well. Other pitchers, I wrote about him this morning, but in terms of Christian Coppola had a dominant performance last night for Team USA Baseball at the collegiate training camp. Through 3 innings, 4 strikeouts, 1 hit. He, first Rutgers baseball player to make first team All Big Ten as a freshman. Led all starters in ERA. He was a tremendous find, and also, the way Owens got the most out of him and made him the Friday starter early enough to make an impact, and he just blossomed. So that's a pitching staff you can build around with him, and so it's gonna be interesting to see who else they add through the portal. And then in terms of positional players, now we're up to 5. Just this week, John Volpe, key contributor for a very good Rider team that went to the NCAA tournament, won an NCAA tournament game. He was 6 of 14 from the plate in those 3 NCAA tournament games. They beat Coastal Carolina, which was a big upset. He was 3 of 6 in that game, I think. And yeah, he's a guy that plays multiple positions. He plays second base, shortstop, outfield. He 2 years ago he had 192 putouts with 0 errors. So he's a very valuable guy that's transferring in. He's from Jersey. So that's I think a huge pickup. They've gotten a trio of outfielders now. Pete DeRocha from Manhattan, who's had a good career there. He's a 2-time All MAC selection. So key guy there who's going to come in. And then you have Scotty Young from the JUCO ranks, Rowan College, not the Division III part, but the JUCO part in South Jersey. So he had really good numbers there. He had 400. And then DeRocha has a lot of experience in Manhattan. And then also their first transfer ad, like right away, was outfielder Pete Safrida from Lafayette. And then I think one that could be a really big addition, doesn't have as much, proven stats, but J.D. Jones, 2-year catcher at Miami, tremendous program. We know that. Always, contending for ACC championships and also, College World Series. Didn't play much as the backup the last 2 years. was really good scholastic background, pretty heavily recruited out of high school, and I think he's a big find. He's from Colorado, so I'm not quite sure the connection in terms of getting him, but I think he's someone that could be a mainstay behind the plate for the next 2 years. So uh, that is who has committed so far. With the beauty of podcasts, this could be dated in an hour of being published. Someone could be announced. But listen, Steve Owens and the staff are doing work in the portal. They are adding some freshmen, and like I said, a couple have been added. But I'm going to wait till the whole freshman class is announced before I kind of break that down. But it's just this is college sports right now. The transfer portal is going to be very active, and just because a lot of players are leaving does not mean there's a red flag or something's wrong. It just is part of the reality of sports. I mean, Steve Pikiell said it. Every team is a 1 year team now, regardless of how many years of eligibility people have. It was interesting coming out with the NCAA today. In terms of two-time transfers, the data is stating that a lot are not getting approved. As a one-time transfer, you can transfer immediately and be eligible for the following season. As a two-time transfer, you have to get a waiver, or you have to sit out a year. So that's going to be interesting to see how that goes for other sports. But I think with baseball, it's a normal thing. And I think Steve Owens is equipped to handle it. I mean, we know he's a very good baseball coach. He's, won 1,000 games in his career. He's very well respected. I really like what he's done at Rutgers so far. And he's dove into the portal ever since he's been here. And you're going to have some misses, but I think overall he's going to have more he's gonna make more contact than misses. And it's there's gonna be some more additions to the roster. It's what, into June. Obviously only a month in. Well, I mean, a few days since the season ended, right? With LSU winning the national championship. So gonna be eventful for sure. Gonna keep track of it all. I have posts written on all the transfers in. You can find on the scarletfaithful.com and the post for this podcast as well. I'll have all of them linked. But overall, still very positive about the program. Still very positive about Steve Owens, and really intrigued by some of the transfers coming in. Like I said, I think JD Jones, I think John Volpe, those stand out to me, as well as DeRocha. I think those three guys can make immediate impacts. Not that the other two can't, but I think that those are holes that the Rutgers has that can be filled by them pretty immediately. And then the pitching staff, we'll see what happens. I think it's all going to depend on who else is back, who Owens envisions as the weekend starters, and who competes for those kind of weekday starters as well as the bullpen roles. A lot to be determined, but a lot has come in so far. More to come, and I'll keep you posted. And thank you for listening and watching to this episode of the Scholar Faithful podcast. And I'll talk to you tomorrow.